Every day we participate in conversations, be it with our friends, at work. Put somebody in front of an audience and suddenly things change. Suddenly speaking becomes public. So public speaking's not the difficult bit, is it, Lisa? Right?
No.
But when it becomes public, all eyes are on you, we suddenly change and we become very self-conscious. Mm-hmm. We are starting to question whether what we're saying is worthy of the audience that are listening. We start actually thinking they're probably judging me, they're evaluating me, they're looking at me. All this stuff that is going on in your head that in an everyday conversation with somebody you're not even thinking about at all.
Yeah, it wouldn't even enter your mind.
No.
And the thing is that those thoughts can quickly spiral out of control.
Up to a point where your cognitive ability literally grinds to a halt and you can't even say the word "the" properly. We've all seen this before in many settings before, and maybe you've experienced it yourself. I certainly have in my early days of presenting. So this is a very common thing. It's so debilitating that it causes people not to speak up in meetings when they've got something worthy of the audience or the meeting listening to. It stops people putting themselves in a position where they potentially will be exposed because they'll be expected to speak in public. And it's so career inhibiting. It's a very common phenomenon. And if you're listening to this thinking, this definitely relates to me, you are certainly not alone.
And you're in very good company as well. You know, there's countless famous people who have very publicly admitted to the fact that they also suffer this anxiety.
There is a solution, and we have been coaching people on public speaking for 30 odd years. I feel very confident that listening through to the end of this podcast, you will get something that you can use. As always, our promise here in the Power Up podcast is to take away something which is practical that you can go and use immediately. And that is our goal today. So strap yourself in and be ready to feel liberated next time you want to make a speech, or I say a speech, I mean, it sounds a bit dramatic.
I mean, we're going to cover everything, aren't we? You know, the strategies are very practical and they can apply to conversations in meetings, formal presentations, the whole spectrum.
Yeah, nobody makes speeches as such, do they?
No.
You know,
Well,
maybe. Well, we've got the election on at the moment. There'll be a lot of speeches in the UK, that is, and in the States as well. So there'll be a lot of speeches. But we're talking about conversations around, you know, maybe a meeting, you know, where you've got even down to the point when you're sitting in a meeting and someone asks you a question, we can freeze. Let alone saying, hey, Martin, would you mind doing a little piece at this week's Monday meeting catch-up? And you spent all weekend worrying about something you're going to speak for 5 minutes. We really want to help you get over that. We want to help you get confident and enjoy it.
Yeah.
All right? And
lean into those opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what we're going to cover is, you know, where this anxiety comes from and what is actually going on. That causes this anxiety. And as Martin said, provide some very practical strategies for overcoming that anxiety, both in preparing for a speech or presentation or conversation, and strategies to help you control those nerves during a presentation.
Mastering this skill is really about mastering really two things. On one hand, it's the preparation of the presentation itself. How do you construct a powerful, compelling, impactful presentation? And then two, how do you perform it?
Yeah.
So presentation, planning, presentation, performance, and those are the two areas that we're going to look at. It's a vast subject, Lisa, as you well know, and it's something we could spend an inordinate amount of time on. So we're going to keep things simple here. If you're listening to this and wanting some practical ideas on how to structure a presentation, and then secondly, get yourself confident, then this is definitely going to be for you.
So thinking about anxiety, like you say, we all have the ability to speak. It's something that happens when that is in a public situation that causes this intense anxiety. And, as we said before, if you do suffer from this anxiety, and, I am a sufferer as well, there's 77% of the population actually fear public speaking. I think actually, incredibly, they fear it more than dying itself. So
glossophobia.
Yeah, it's called glossophobia, the fear of public speaking. And there's many high-profile actors, politicians, singers, comedians,
Abraham Lincoln,
suffered.
even famous public speaker, Mark Zuckerberg, Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
It's amazing, the list of people that have suffered from this. I even remember myself, when I first started out and I first became a sales manager, and that meant standing in front of 20 people every Monday morning. I couldn't even eat my breakfast. It was ridiculous. I knew I had a skill in this area because I've been doing it. But when it actually came, the thought of actually standing in front of those 20 people and all eyes are on me, I used to make me feel like, so I really do, as much as I've now done sort of 30,000 hours, which is not exaggeration.
It's probably 30 million.
Right. As much as I've done probably 20,000 hours now over 30 years speaking in front of audiences, and when I'm working with people who have anxiety around public speaking, I will never forget those early stages for me. So I do empathise with those people. And it's a very real thing. As silly as it is, it's very real.
So what actually is going on? What is it that causes the anxiety?
I think at the heart of it, one is people are a fear of embarrassing themselves. Nobody wants to make themselves look stupid or lose credibility in front of their work colleagues. So that fear of, will I remember what I'm actually going to say? I know from coaching hundreds of people, they will often say to me, Martin, I'm absolutely fine as long as I know what I've got to say and when I'm going to say it and what is going to happen. And I went, that's great, but that's not the best belief to have. As much as, I'm certainly saying you should prepare. And if actually thorough preparation takes away a lot of the fear.
Yeah.
If you know what you are going to say, that is a great place to start. And we certainly can help with that by structuring and having a good preparation methodology.
Yeah.
But it's also useful to have a belief that says, no matter what, even if I lose my place, even if the meeting goes off in a different direction, if I'm asked a question I wasn't expecting, it's really useful to have a belief system that says no matter what, I'll still be okay.
And it's interesting because you see it on programs like Dragon's Den. Obviously, if you're going on national TV, you are going to be preparing.
You would hope so.
Your message.
Yeah, this is your big chance.
Yeah. But you see time and time again, some people properly choke. There's a famous video, isn't there, that we used in some of the programs where people literally lose their head. And that is actually what's going on, isn't it? Because you're downshifting to a much more primitive area of your brain that is there to protect you.
Exactly.
And that part of your brain is screaming... Danger. Danger.
The amygdala comes in, you have an amygdala hijack, takes over your brain, renders you useless. You drop down to that more, as you say, that fight or flight response, which is trying to protect you, and suddenly you've lost it, you're into choke territory. And I think, I do think a big part of that is the fear of embarrassment, the fear of judgment, the fear of failure. All the big fears suddenly are there in one big concentrated point in time.
And as we've explored in other podcast episodes, that your brain doesn't realise that it's not actually happening. It is real and felt, but it is, as we said before, false evidence appearing real.
Exactly. Unless you take control of the brain.
Yeah.
Then that is the point. There is nothing, I think, other than, could argue there's one or two incidents in the history of public speaking where maybe someone's been, assassinated. All right. This is not a regular occurrence, Lisa. No. You don't hear of many deaths through public.
That you may go on anyway.
There are many more fearful things to do than public speaking.
Yeah.
But those concentrated fears, those big fears, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of looking stupid, fear of making mistakes, all those those are the big fears that we have become very concentrated in that moment. And that's just, as you say, it's just the brain trying to protect you. And that's the good news, isn't it? Because, as I said before, active speaking is not an issue. The fact that it's in public and it induces these fears means that it's something that we can take control of that in advance by doing some mental preparation and preparation on the presentation. I'm not going to say that you can completely eliminate all fear. Because I know as an experienced speaker myself, if I'm going in front of a big audience and there is a high expectation, I mean, that there is a bit of nervous energy, but that's an appropriate level of nervous energy that is letting your nervous system know, oh, Martin, you better get ready for this. This is important. Yeah.
Do you ever feel that, you know, because obviously you have felt it once, do you ever feel that more intense sense of nervousness or fear, or is it just because you've done it so many times you never get to that level? I mean,
yeah, on occasions, if it's maybe a new talk, a new audience, new setting, maybe the stakes are higher, I'd be lying if I said I did get some. Of course you get some sort of nervous energy. Most of the time you do over time build a high reference that, oh, look, I survived. Oh, look, I survived. No one got hurt. I didn't embarrass myself. I felt I was just having a conversation.
Yeah.
And this notion of I'm being judged on every word just goes.
Yeah.
Just in the same way when you're having conversations with work colleagues, you don't feel like you're being judged on everything you're saying.
No.
You can trip over, you can make mistakes, you can have a few ums and ahs here and there where you're thinking about your thoughts or...
Well, that's where the biggest learning comes from, isn't it? You know, no one sails their way. You had to do the hard yards in the first place to get where you are now. You know, you've lent into it. I mean, for me, you know, I'm not a natural public speaker. And actually, when we first did this podcast, you know, I'm more of a behind the scenes gal, you know.
But you are a natural public speaker. You've done brilliantly well on these podcasts.
Yeah, and I've really enjoyed it. But to your point, you know, leaning into it and actually doing it and surviving, you know, I'm still here. Is this the last season? No, it's not. I definitely feel I think when we did the first few episodes, you know, on the way, I'd be, you know, I made the mistake of actually listening to other people's podcasts before we were recording a podcast, thinking, there is no way I'm going to, you know, sound anything, you know, like that. But, you know, the more you do it, and then when you listen to the recordings and you gather evidence that actually sounded quite good. And I had to listen to one of our episodes on the way here this morning, and I actually found myself laughing at us.
Laughing at yourself.
In a good way.
This is getting wrong. It's going too far. I know it's a chuckle when I have to tell my wife, "What are you listening to?" I'm listening to myself.
Yeah.
But you've got to check them.
Well, my kids sometimes get in the car and they were like, "Is that you listening to you?"
Switch it off, Mum, immediately. So think serious point though. What has changed? So you went through this. As you said, you've always kind of not completely shied away from, you know, you've always been a sort of designer, you've been in HR a long time, being learning and development of 30 odd years.
Yeah.
But you've never been front and centre on the stage.
No.
So this is fairly new doing this. When you think back, what is the big change, do you think, for you?
It's just reference points.
Yeah.
You know, it's just changing that, you know, because there is a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't there? If you have a negative belief about your ability to do something, you will look and find evidence of that will support that belief. So it's about just leaning into it and switching it so that you find positive stories
so when you're driving in
belief.
Here now to record this podcast, what are you thinking?
That we can do this. It's going to be fun. I do think doing a podcast is a little bit different because, you know, obviously we're able to edit it. I mean, we don't tend to edit too much.
Hardly at all.
But, you know, so it is more of this is a conversation. There isn't a whole stage of people. I don't know how I would now be in front of a whole stage of people. I do tend to quite like those opportunities when I get to do them. But I do the yards in terms of preparation and everything that we're going to talk about in terms of the strategies in order to feel good.
I think also think about where does it come from. We don't have to go too far back in it. Well, it depends on how old you are, but you have to go too far back in your lives to go back to school. And we all remember what it was like when 30 faces were looking at you and the teacher asked you a question.
Or to read out loud.
Or something that you didn't... something you weren't familiar with, or, you weren't sure of the answer, you were, getting the answer wrong, feeling, and then if the teacher wasn't a particularly good teacher, made you feel bad about that. So you can see where those early beliefs get installed. Whereas if that was a much more less threatening, more relaxing environment, where
more nurturing of that. It's an important skill, isn't it?
The teacher made it safe for you to, and wouldn't actually allow other kids to laugh at you if you made a mistake, because they would be very kind, and you were in that more supportive environment. You can see how the beliefs get installed very early on. But we're not in a classroom anymore.
No.
And we're not going to, no one is willing you to make a mistake, and no one is willing you to fail or to get it wrong or to say the wrong thing. And I say this to everyone I coach: people, remember, want you to do well. They really do. If you are sitting in an audience listening to someone speaking, it is uncomfortable to watch someone squirming and fidgeting around, thinking they're going to trip over every next word they say. So do the audience a favour. It's not. It's uncomfortable for them to watch you being uncomfortable. So remember, the audience want you to do well. And as soon as you start to, if you're projecting confidence, then that's the way that it gets perceived. So my projection, the way I am feeling, gets projected onto the audience. And then the audience capture that feeling that, oh, Martin's relaxed, so I can be relaxed with him. If I'm with nervous energy, and I'm projecting that nervous energy onto the audience, that's how the audience get to feel nervous. I can see them being nervous of me. And then that exacerbates the situation.
It's interesting, if I'm in an audience, if I'm in an audience and, someone is outwardly, appearing nervous, then I will do anything I can, to smile at them, nod,
support them,
and try and support them. But then all of the attention tends to get directed on you as the kind face, maybe, and that's maybe, not helping them.
So in summary, what we're saying is that, number one, it's quite normal to have this fear. Yes, it's normal because other people have it, but it's not necessarily something that we should accept as being normal. That's my challenge. It's, why should it be normal that you would speak about something that people by and large want to hear? They've been asked for your opinion. What's not normal is the belief that people are judging you. You're concerned about screwing up because you think you don't want to embarrass yourself and all that stuff. And it's actually the opposite. People want you to do well. They want to listen to you. They want you to be interesting. They want you to be offering some value, and they want to support you. So that's the thing I think we need to challenge to start with, is to get your mindset into a place of, this is just a conversation that I'm having, that I'd be having with my friend, but I'm doing it in a more formalized environment, and therefore just need to be a bit better prepared about what I'm going to say. But it is a conversation. Don't think about it. I'll say this to all my clients. Don't think about it as a presentation. Think about it as a conversation. You're going to go in and you're going to have a conversation, but you're going to do it in a slightly more organised fashion than you normally would if you were just chatting to your friend in a bar or having a cup of coffee.
So, completely normal fear, but can definitely, you don't have to live with it.
No.
You can definitely, using some of the strategies we're going to explore.
As I said before, there'll always be a little bit of nervous anxiety, but that's quite normal. It's normal for even, professionals to have that.
Do you believe that, of all the examples of great speakers we see, do you think that anybody is completely fear-free, or does everyone that is in that position suffer this to a greater or lesser degree?
In answer to your question, I think that, first of all, in preparing or thinking about doing whether you're a MP or whether you're a CEO or a manager in a company, or you're preparing something for a conference, even if you're familiar with public speaking, there's a certain amount of anxiety that might go with that. But I think where it changes is once you start.
Yes.
Once you get into it and you relax, you forget about that thing. You're getting an interaction with the audience. They're laughing, they're communicating, they're asking questions. And you're in the moment, you feel comfortable, and all that fear dissipates.
It's interesting that you say that, because quite often it is the anticipation that is much worse than, than actually doing it. And, you know, doing it and coming out the other side, particularly if it's a good experience, is such a great feeling, you know. So it's something to absolutely lean into, not shy away from.
And, you know, let me remind everybody that the ability to be able to speak in public is such a game-changing skill. And as we often say, you know, there is a disproportionate amount of credibility bestowed upon those people that can speak well in public. So as soon as you start sounding confident, making sense, communicating your ideas, people immediately sort of think, wow, this person's like super sharp, they're really credible, you know, they're intelligent.
Yeah.
And isn't amazing? All you are doing is making a good account of yourself and just being able to communicate your ideas. So it's a brilliant skill to master. Let's look at how we actually do it.
Yeah, let's get into the strategies then. So you mentioned earlier we're going to look at this in terms of two aspects. One in terms of the planning, in terms of the message itself, and then the performance.
Performance, yeah. I think about the metaphor of a singer-songwriter. You have the songwriter that writes the song, and then the singer sings the song. You have a playwright that writes the script, that writes the play. You have actors that then come and perform that. You write your presentation and then you perform. You speak to the presentation. Now, we all know that, you know, a perfectly beautiful song can be destroyed by poor singing. You know, talent shows like X Factor, etc. will certainly give credence to that. But also, a professional singer will know that a poorly written song is much harder to sing. You know, a poorly written play is going to be harder to perform. And as with a presentation, if the presentation has no storyline to it, if there isn't a natural beginning, middle, end, it's really hard to present unless you actually organise your content and your thoughts in such a way that you, as the presenter, you'll think, oh, I'm feeling really confident about, I've got a really good start. Oh, I've got a really good story. Oh, I've got a really good point to make. Oh, I found this really interesting fact, or I found this really interesting anecdote or data point. And I'm excited about it, and I can see how it all forms together. Yeah. It's like listening to a song that flows together well. That's why one feeds the other. Yeah. I think you mentioned earlier, Lisa, that major part of anxiety, in fact, a huge part, some would say as much as 90%, comes from preparation. So once you know what you're going to, the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and the thing you're going to say is, and how you're going to say it, it gives you a huge amount of confidence. And then there is the mental preparation, because you could have this well-constructed play, song, you know, and people get nervous and they can't perform. So you have to have the ability in the moment when the pressure is on to be able to control that anxiety, that normal level of anxiety that kicks in. Well, I say normal, sometimes it's over-indexed, over-exaggerated, and then that's when you become rendered hopeless and you can't speak. Yeah. So you've got to have a strategy to be able to control the anxiety as well. If we take then the planning side of things first, then what are the steps in terms of planning a presentation or message? We have three. We talk about setting the context, finding the content, having the confidence. Okay. So context, content, confidence. Yeah. If we can nail those three things. So first of all, in terms of context, the most useful place to start is if you're asked to do a talk, the first place to go is who's going to be listening? Yeah. Who are the audience? If I'm asked to do a talk, someone says, can you come to my meeting and talk to them about whatever? And I'd say, right, okay, great, sure. Who are these people? What would they know about my subject? So if I'm going to go and talk about public speaking, for example, I would say, well, how experienced are these people? What settings would they typically find themselves having to do talks in public? How often? What position are they? What kind of topics would they have to deliver? And so forth. So we call it audience analysis. Yeah. It's really useful to know how much they know. So rather than you going in and, you know, if you pitch that right, then you'll get very high degree of resonance. If you go in and start talking about things they already know about, then, you know, that's not going to resonate with them. And you can connect to why they might get value from, or how they might get value from
from what you're going to say.
Yeah. So understanding as much about the audience, who they are, where they're from, what roles they're in. And sometimes I would ask the audience, I would ask the person sponsoring me in, I would say, I can see you're very keen for me to come and talk to your audience. How keen are they to listen to me? What objections might they have?
Yeah.
Why would they not want to listen to me?
What other things are going on in their world at that time? I mean, I guess
what would be useful to them?
Yeah.
What would be highly useful to them on whatever this particular? Let's say you were a business manager and you were asked to go and talk about a project. Oh, Martin, Lisa, can you come in and talk to me? You've done a great job on that project. You can come and talk to the team about it. Don't just take that as oh yeah, great, I'll do that.
They'll all want to hear what I've got to say.
Say, well, what would be useful for this audience to hear about this project? Why do you think it would be useful for them? That's the question you need to ask. And you'd be surprised how much information you get. And then you utilize that information when you're speaking.
Yeah.
In preparation
Yeah.
for this session, I asked Helen what you might be interested in. I was very intrigued to find that she cited these 3 things as being the top things you're most interested in. Let me share them with you. Shows I've done some bit of work on trying to understand the audience.
And the same principle can apply to, it doesn't have to be a formal presentation. It might be, preparation for a meeting, to think about who's going to be around the table and what their, the context around them might be.
Context is the key word here. We've just been asked to prepare something for a meeting at a conference in Germany. We were asked to talk about leadership. So my first question is, what's the context for leadership? Why have you come up with the subject of leadership? Why now?
And what specifically about leadership is a huge topic.
Exactly. What would be useful for these people to hear? And what's prompted this conversation? What do you think would be most useful to people? So that's audience analysis.
Yeah.
2, set a clear objective. So once you've got that audience analysis, then you can say, right, what time have I got? I've got 30 minutes, I've got 20 minutes, I've got an hour. What would be a realistic objective in that period of time?
In terms of the outcome for that audience.
Yeah. And so we use a simple little framework called think, feel, do, know. Think, feel, do, know. So if you write those 4 things down and then ask yourself the question, what do I want this audience to be thinking at the end of this presentation? You could even ask what they might be thinking now.
Yeah.
If you were going, you were talking about public speaking, you might ask yourself the question, what do they think about public speaking? Are they super confident, And what do I want them thinking about it? I want them thinking that they can do it, that with preparation and the right skills, there's something, as you say, they should lean into a little bit more and it's going to help with their career, etc., etc. The other thing is about beliefs. So thinking could be about beliefs as well, because they could be thinking this is impossible. You're going to talk to them about diversity and they're thinking, oh, I'm not really interested in this subject. It's not relevant to me. You might want to change that belief. So what is the belief they've got? What do you want to change it to?
That's really, I hadn't thought of it like current thinking, feeling, doing and knowing versus what you want them to
what
leave
they're
with
feeling
at
at the
end.
moment.
Yeah, so there's
how
a
do you
sense
want them to feel?
Then of the journey you need to take them on, which is really useful, I think.
All presentations really start off with what is the ideal state you want to move people to? What is the ideal for this audience? Where are you trying to, what would be ideal for them? And that's where all good stories start. If you think about it, where's the end? You're trying to get to an end. That's what you're there for. And
it is largely about a feeling, isn't it?
Yes.
You know, because even if they're thinking something or doing something, it's motivated by a feeling of support or otherwise.
And the feelings could be as simple as, I want to engender a stronger feeling of trust. I want to engender a feeling of collaboration.
Or excitement.
Inspiration. I want to get them feeling excited about this product or this service or this project or buying into this new initiative.
So think and feel.
Think and feel. Then do.
Yeah.
What do you want them to actually do as a result? What is the action?
So the call to action.
Yeah.
At the end
what do you want them
of
to
the
do?
Session.
What do you want? You talked about you want them thinking differently, you want them feeling differently. What do you want them to do? Are there specific things? What's your ask of the audience? Get very clear about what that is. And there's a reason for this we'll get to in a second. And then finally, what do you want them to know? Maybe there's some information they weren't aware of.
Yeah.
Factual information, some stats and facts, etc. Some knowledge transfer.
It could be understanding how what they do fits within the context of the project, or the role they can play in driving a success in a change program.
It could be a teaching session. They want to know how to construct a presentation. They want to know about how to collaborate with wider teams, or I might want to learn about how to lead in a post-pandemic world or a hybrid world. This is a knowledge transfer. So think, feel, do, know.
Yeah. So that's to the second point in terms of defining the objective or the outcome for the session.
By understanding what you want them to be thinking, feeling, doing and knowing, it then informs the next stage. And that is what would be the most relevant, useful content to help me achieve those objectives.
Okay.
So we're clear on who the audience are. We're getting clear on what the objective is. And now we say, and only now would we say, what is the most relevant content?
Because that's the temptation, isn't it? You have a subject, you go straight to the content.
You go straight to your favourite content.
Yeah.
Can you come and talk on diversity? Can you come and talk on project management? Oh, yeah, I've got some great stuff on that.
Yeah.
And what you're doing is you've got
One
this
size fits all.
solution looking for a problem, and it might not be necessarily relevant.
Yeah.
So by doing it this way, you know that the content you're delivering, because we've talked about context, now we're into content.
Yeah.
So what are the key messages? Number 3, key messages. What would be the most useful things they would need to hear or to learn about in order to meet those objectives that we've talked about? Then what you do, number 4, is say, okay, if those are the key messages, and in this case we're saying, they need to know how to construct a presentation, they need to know maybe a little bit more on how to do audience analysis and how to build confidence.
Yeah.
Then I would start looking for data, facts, figures to support your argument. Stories, highly referenceable, relevant stories. It could be some statistics.
Yeah.
It could be a piece of research that you're quoting. It could be their experience. It could be your experience. But you're only finding things that are relevant to the key messages, which are relevant
to the outcome,
which is relevant to the audience.
Yeah.
So you can see we're building something which is solid here. Okay. Then once you're starting to build up that content, you then need to put that content into a structure, because it's like you've got all these pieces all over the place. And we've all listened to a presentation where you think, where the hell are they going?
Yeah, I can't follow this. It's confused and I'm confused.
Yeah,
and then
where
you
are
switch
they going?
off, don't you?
I've got no idea the relevance of this story, why they're telling me about this fact, why they were quoting me this research, and they're all over the place. So the idea here is to help people put this into a structured, coherent order that makes sense to the listening audience and makes it easy for them to follow and easy for them to buy into your message.
And actually we explored 2 things that are very relevant to this discussion on previous podcasts. One is gathering stories in the storytelling episode, which was number 4, and number 5, which was the influencing and persuasion episode with Ian Mackenzie, where you talked about this structure. So it's probably worth listeners going back and listening to those as well in conjunction with this one.
Definitely around structure, because there's a lot to be said about structuring information. I mean, just broadly for the purposes of this podcast right now, just think about the natural storytelling process.
Yeah.
Beginning, middle and end. The beginning is to set up the listener. Here's what I'm going to talk about. The front end of this podcast, we always try to signal to the audience, here's what we're going to talk about today. And then we proceed to deliver against that. So the middle part of the presentation is delivering upon the promise you've made at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then the end, as we always try and do, is to summarize what we've actually talked about.
Yeah.
It comes from the old adage of tell them what you're going to tell them, and tell them what you've told them. I'm sure people have heard that many times before, but it's doing that in a very meaningful way.
Yeah.
We generally recommend using the power of 3. The power of 3 is used in advertising. 3 words work better than 5. 3 topics work better than 6. Slogans that are 3.
Digestible.
Yeah.
It's easy to understand something that comes. Is there, ever a danger that you can structure things too much, in that then if you're actually delivering a presentation and someone knocks you off track, you're thinking, that actually causes anxiety because you haven't made all the things that you wanted.
The lack of preparation when that happens is what causes you anxiety, because your preparation is, if the preparation is very flimsy and you haven't got a very clear structure, and someone comes in with something different, you start to panic. You think, I'm all over the place here. I'm not sure. I've lost my thread. I'm not, people say, I lost my thread. I wasn't quite sure where I was going. Whereas if you're really clear, that episode where we talk about structure will enable you to have a very clear track. It doesn't bother you.
And it's not to the level of script, is it? It's very sort of high level in terms of bullet points. So the roadmap of
it should still feel like a conversation.
Yeah.
It's like anything that is performed well. There is always a very clear strategy.
Yeah.
I use the example of a magician. A magician gives you an amazing experience. I mean, things disappear, things appear, distraction. I mean, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful execution. It's a real art form. Done well, magic is great. I'm a big lover of it. But behind the scenes, there's a very clever strategy being deployed, which has probably taken them quite some time to perfect. So whilst what the audience are getting is this beautiful, natural conversation, but because you've done the work, in preparation,
that's what
you've got a nice, really, and you can have notes, by the way. There's no issue with having notes. Just reading from notes is a real no-no.
Yeah.
But if you've got notes, it's a reference point. If you lose your way, and it's quite normal, a bit like if you're chatting to your friend and you get a bit distracted by something and you say, where was I now? What was I talking about?
Yeah.
It's quite natural. Say that and say, hold on. Okay, so that's a really good point. I hope that's answered your question. We are going to go into a bit more detail on that later. Go to your notes, peg them up and say, right, now where was I? Okay, great, yes. Put your notes back down, carry on with your presentation. Be natural. That's the thing.
Excellent. In terms of that structure as well, we did put it in the power tool from episode 5, but we'll also include it in the power tool for this one, just as a reminder.
Yeah. So structuring your content, thinking about how you're introducing it, labeling it and signposting it. We generally recommend, we're going to talk about 3 things today. Our subject is fruit, and you're going to talk about oranges, apples and pears. Tell people that's what you're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Today I'm going to talk about oranges, apples and pears. You don't start talking about kiwi fruit halfway through, or start talking about pineapples or coconuts or bananas.
It's not a whole fruit salad.
It's not a whole fruit salad, and it gets very messy and you don't know where you are.
Yeah.
So be clear. I'm going to talk about oranges, apples and pears. You talk about oranges, you finish the subject, you signal to people, you're now going to talk about apples, and you talk about apples. Then you say you're going to talk about pears, and you tell people you're talking about pears. And then when you summarize in the same order.
Yeah.
So what have we talked about today? Oranges. And the point I made around oranges was this. The second point was apples. This is what I spoke about. These are the points I made. And the final thing I spoke about was pears. And these are the points I made. So very clear summary. And people love that.
Yeah.
Because you have made them feel this has been really worth listening to. And the bits they miss, you've now summarised on. It makes them feel great.
And it really shows the work that you have put in terms of understanding what they want, the value that they're going to get from that, and put thought into your presentation rather than just spray and pray, as I think some people call it.
Yeah.
And what I love about that structure that we'll share in the power tool as well is how simple it is. It's just so simple, and it helps you prepare and then deliver something that's really going to nail your message.
It's simple when you execute against it. Don't be fooled by the fact. Don't look at it and think it's so simple I don't need to use it.
Yeah. Yes, the discipline, isn't it?
Yeah, simple isn't always easy. Easy becomes because you're using it. It becomes easy through using something which is simple over and over again. Like most things in life, once it becomes habitual, it's really easy. Very quick summary then.
Yeah.
So context, understand your audience, do audience analysis. Number 2, set a clear objective. Then we move on to content. So the third point is know what your key messages are going to be.
Yeah.
What are your key messages? The fourth point is...
That was the one around data, wasn't it? Gathering data.
Data collection, we call that.
That supports your message.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the fifth point in terms of your content would be structuring it. How do you structure it? So the final bit then we move on to is confidence.
Yeah.
So we've got our context, we've got our content, we've got our presentation organised. Now we need to move on to building our confidence. And the first thing you should really look to do here, which not everybody enjoys doing, but is have a read through and rehearsal.
Yeah.
There is no question at all. The more you rehearse, the better you get. The more you rehearse, the more confident you become. And the more you rehearse, the more you will enjoy it.
And the more you rehearse, you give the brain the message that you got this and you know your stuff and you can say it, and get your message across eloquently and everything is going to be all right.
And you start to feel more comfortable. You think, I'm really enjoying this. I'm looking forward to this. I know what I'm going to say. So having put all that work in, whether you say it out loud to a colleague, stand in front of a mirror, I think it's better to actually say it to somebody. So they're receiving it as a human being.
Yeah, and can give you feedback.
Let's face it, every presentation I create in my own mind sounds brilliant. All right. It's only when you actually go to deliver it do you realise whether it actually works or not. So get an audience, have a practice, family members or whatever.
Yeah.
And just see how it comes together. And let's not worry about making a few mistakes. Let's get it wrong. Let's work out what's working, what doesn't work. I don't understand why that bit fits with that.
Yeah.
Rehearse. But don't do the whole, this is what I'm thinking about saying. When I ask people to rehearse, they start, well, Martin, I thought I'd start off by chatting about this, and I thought I'd say this, and then I thought I'd move on to this. Then I thought I'd move on to that. I said, okay, great. Let's do it then. Yeah, what I thought I'd say is, no,
Not
let's
talk
do it.
through the structure, you deliver
do
it.
Actually deliver it. Now you're now delivering it, right? Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. Now we're properly rehearsing.
Yeah.
We're going live.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see how it sounds. Let's practice it and let's refine it a bit. Let's make some changes and let's see, whether or not it needs a stronger beginning. Do we need to be clear about the signposting? Is the messaging clear at the end? Is the outcome clear? Etc., etc.
Yeah.
The best way to rehearse is actually say to your audience, your rehearsal audience, these are the messages I'm trying to get across. These are the points I'm trying to make. And this is what I want to leave them with.
So it's almost actually talking them through the points that we've covered so far, isn't it?
And then say, do you think that is hitting the mark?
Yeah.
Or do I need something stronger?
Yeah.
Is that story I'm telling relevant? Does it make a strong enough point, etc.? Does it need a bit more evidence? Are you convinced? Do you feel persuaded? Are you inspired? Etc. There are so many people, all they want to do, they will say, all I want to do is just get it out of the way.
Yeah.
I think this is not a great place to start. Get it out of the way. I mean, let's think about your audience.
They just want to survive the experience.
I mean, your audience don't want you just to get it out of the way. They actually want it to be valuable.
Yeah.
So let's make sure that we're entering into this with the right spirit, that this is going to be hugely valuable for them and beneficial to you and your credibility as well.
And so, because that's a good point, before we move on to the mindset, getting ready in terms of your mindset, it's also useful, isn't it, to anticipate any questions that might come up, particularly if you're in a formal presentation setting. So do you advise that people do that? If it was a client presentation, for example, ask questions of the client ahead of time, or is it more to reflect on what things might come up, or a combination of both? I
think it's a combination of both, but it's always good. So this is point number 7, practice the Q&A and be prepared for a Q&A, because Q&A is arguably the bit where your presentation can become even stronger.
Yeah.
It's often the most natural bit. It's the bit where it's the audience then take over. Preparing yourself for the likely questions. What I would always say, what questions don't you want to get? Because if you can get prepared for those, I really don't want people to ask me about my last experience of this because it was a disaster, all right? Or I don't want people to ask about, the money side of it or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So or the financials. So get ready. Let's get those questions out and let's think about how you would answer those questions when they come up.
Because I guess the tendency is to place all your focus, if you are doing great preparation, is to place your focus on the presentation itself and then sort of shoulders drop at the Q&A because you think, well, just deal with whatever comes up. But no. But equal amount of preparation needs to go into this.
I mean, certainly in the world of pitching, which we're not specifically talking about here, but in the world of pitching, you can, sold your presentation and then buy it back in the Q&A because you don't ask the questions well, you're not prepared for them.
Yeah.
So think about the questions you want to get answered. Maybe even have some questions yourself for the audience. Sometimes the audience or particularly if it was a customer or a client, they might say, what questions do you have for us? So being prepared for that and having a few questions of your own.
Yeah.
But in art, just very simply, just again, not making this too long here. When you're asked a question, there's really two types of questions. There is a question that's seeking information, or there is a question that is potentially objection-based, or they want to be reassured by something. So just information is fairly simple. You know, is this available in black? Can I order this online or whatever? It's something really simple. When is this available? Simple questions. But most of the questions we are likely to get in a presentation are likely to be looking for either reassurance or looking to test their own thinking out.
Yeah.
So, for example, in a recent presentation I did, there's one particular individual out of a group of 8 kept asking questions that on the surface seemed like he was being very objectionable. He was one of those kind of what if type folks.
Yeah.
Martin, can I just check with you? What if this situation happened? What if this situation happened? And it's almost like he's trying to, well, I think to the uninformed ear, you might perceive that as someone who's being a bit difficult and awkward. But in fact, it's his decision-making process to ask questions, to investigate, to check his own understanding.
Yeah.
So celebrate it. When you get difficult questions, celebrate it. They're there for a reason. And just qualify the question. You just ask the person, can I just check before I answer that question? You know, first of all, acknowledge the question. I appreciate you asking that question. That's something I thought about. I would avoid the whole, that's a great question.
Okay.
Thing. I never think that's.
Why is that? Because it sounds patronising.
It's not always a great question, and then once you've said it once, if you've got to say it for every single time,
because everyone's a great question.
And actually, maybe somebody, half the audience are thinking that's not a particularly great question. Why are you saying that? Just saying that to make them feel good. So I'm not a big lover of it. I like acknowledging the question.
Yeah.
And I might say, thank you for asking that question. That question brings to mind something I was thinking about before this presentation. Can I just clarify with you what you're really asking for? Is it more about this or more about that?
Yeah.
Then you answer the question as well as you can and keep that nice and short, not too long. And then just check that you've answered it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
And then maybe there's a further exchange between you and the audience.
Yeah. No, that's really useful. So number 8 in the final piece in confidence is getting into state. So what do we mean by that and how do we do it?
Yeah, not getting into a right state.
No, not into a state.
A state, yes, right, indeed, yeah. Getting into a positive state. We often overlook the importance of the emotional state we're in when we're delivering the message.
Yeah.
So if you've got a good news story, or by contrast, it could be some serious news, serious message, you need to think about the emotional state you're in while you're delivering that message.
And it needs to be appropriate to that.
Then. So first of all, get your game face on. We call it playing from a 10, showtime state. I'm up for this, I'm ready for that. And then during that presentation, there might be various different states you exhibit, but because you're in a confident state, I'm looking forward to this, I've got my head in the right space, you can then display a variety of different emotional states that are appropriate to the message you're delivering. So I might be delivering a good news message at one point, I might be delivering a message of seriousness at another point, it might be more an empathic message. So your emotions should flow with the message you're actually delivering.
Yeah.
If I'm delivering it all in the same emotional state, it doesn't have that emotional contrast. It comes from great acting that great actors know about. When you're acting, you're being the emotional state you want the audience to feel in that moment.
Yeah. And you definitely see that, don't you, when you watch great communicators, is they take you
on a journey.
They experience the journey they are taking you
That's right.
on. And we're going to do another episode specifically on delivery skills, like tonality and all of the rest of it.
Well, let's focus specifically on the area that most people have challenge with, and that is anxiety.
Yeah.
And we talked about where the anxiety comes from, and we talked about reframing a lot of that, and reframing is a big part of it to start. Remember, people want you to feel good.
Yeah.
People are looking forward to it, so changing those beliefs around this. So let's focus on how we can shift from anxiety to awesome.
Yeah.
How can we start to feel great about this? And we use a very simple thing we've shared with people for many years. We call it Presenter's Highway Code. Stop, look, listen. It's what we were taught at school when you're crossing the road, yeah? So stop is when you start the presentation, this is about getting into taking command of your physiology. Because the way you stand, the way you sit, the way you breathe, the way you hold your posture informs both you how to feel and the audience how to feel. So imagine standing there, one state would be head slightly forward, diaphragm slightly crushed because you're looking down at the ground, breathing high in the chest, rubbing your hands together, rubbing your fingers, so shifting from foot to foot.
Yeah.
All of this is going to do great for anxiety, right? If you want to exacerbate anxiety, fill your boots, go and do those things, all right? Now, remember, your body is trying to protect you, and when the body feels under threat, those are the things that it does. So we have to decide we're going to override the body's natural mechanism, natural inclination to go into that posture by standing upright.
Yeah.
Standing more upright, lifting your head up a little bit higher, making good eye contact with the audience, getting your shoulders back, having your hands in front of you so that you can gesture with them. This isn't naturally what you want to do, but if you do it, what happens is your body starts to feel different.
And you send a different signal to your brain.
Talked about this many times before. This is about acting your way into a new way of thinking rather than thinking your way into a new way of acting. If you spend loads of time thinking about it, you probably would never do it.
Yeah.
But if you act that way, then you'll start to feel that way. And guess what? Your audience start to feel that way as well.
And as you people match a mirror, don't they? So as you sort of sit up and your audience will sit up, and that enables them to take on the information more openly as well.
Yeah. So a very simple thing you can do here in preparation for this is breathing. If you're doing all your rehearsal in a wound up, anxious state, guess what's going to show up when you present? I hear a lot of people joking to me about best man speech, and they say, God, I spent hours and hours, I was so anxious, I was so panicking about it. Of course, when I got up there, I was really anxious. And I thought, well, that you spent 3 months rehearsing being anxious is not surprising. That when you stand up there, guess what you get triggered by? Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
How about rehearsing having fun?
Yeah.
How about rehearsing seeing them enjoying your talk? So rehearsing in a positive state.
And so in terms of the breathing, is that
you could do a simple relaxed box breathing, 4-4-4, something like that. Breathe in for 4 seconds through your nose, and then gradually through the pursed lips let out for 4 seconds, or hold in between. So you do this rotation of breathing in, breathing out, and holding in between each breath. That's kind of more about in the mental preparation.
Yeah.
And if you combine that with visualization, which we'll cover in a minute, then you're practicing in a calmer state. In the moment, however, there's something called a physiological sigh, which is difficult to explain here, but it involves taking a double intake of breath.
Yeah, and then you breathe in, don't you? And then breathe in more, and then the out breath needs to be longer.
Yeah, that's
than the intake.
Go and watch Andrew Huberman talk about this, and Google that. Andrew Huberman, physiological sigh, explains it very well. Explains the science behind it, and I found that you can do that kind of in a subtle format in the moment. You just start coming out of your chair, or you're just think about the act of sighing for a moment. When you sigh, we're sighing because we're relaxed. So it's the opposite of, right? Yeah. So it's a very simple thing you can do. What all these things are doing is overriding the body's natural inclination to do the opposite. And when you do that, stop, stand in front of the audience, and own the space. Feel comfortable in that space, even if you can have a couple of seconds of silence. That's more difficult to do because often when people are nervous, they just racing. So it's incredible that when you start slowly and you own the sentence, if you know the first sentence you're going to make, and you start with a story, which is what I like to do, start with a creative opening, and you tell a story, or you say, 5 years ago, I found myself working for a company and off you go. Start with a story. You know the story really well. You know exactly how to tell it, and don't race into it. It relaxes you, relaxes your body, and relaxes everyone else around you, and they feel more comfortable. So that's something to practice. Own those first few moments in a presentation.
Okay, so that's stop.
Stop.
The next thing on the highway code is to look. So
Look, yeah.
Is that about visualizing a successful presentation?
It's thinking through how the presentation is go in advance of the idea of mental rehearsal. The more you rehearse something, as you've said before, brain doesn't know the difference between something which is real and something which is imagined. So if you keep rehearsing your presentation mentally as well as verbally, and you do that a few times, and I would say that when you're rehearsing, don't necessarily rehearse it all being perfect. You rehearse it with maybe some people not looking as interested.
Yeah.
Some people looking happy, some people excited to be there, some people not excited to be there.
So that it's more real.
It's rehearse it in the way that it's going to be.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, because if you don't rehearse for difficulty and difficulty comes up, you go, oh, I wasn't expecting that. Oh, I told the audience we're really looking forward to seeing me. That person on the front row doesn't look very happy to see me.
Yeah.
Oh, well, guess what? Not everyone's going to be interested to listen to what you've got to say. Deal with it, all right? Know that it's going to happen and rehearse with that in mind.
Yeah.
And despite all that, you're still going, if you've got a few grumpy faces, a few objectionable people, so what? You know, you've been invited there, you deserve to be there. And in the same way, by the way, we're talking about being at a meeting and there's half a dozen people around the table and you're asked your opinion. Not everyone's going to agree with you. And when you're speaking, you could get some disapproving looks. Doesn't matter. All right? Own your space. Remember, everyone's entitled to their opinion. You've got yours, they've got theirs. Not everyone's saying you're wrong. They've just got a different point of view.
How do you stop if you can, when you're actually in the audience, you've done your visualization, and you've done it as real as you can, but you're actually there and you can see people as sort of just bored.
Looking like royal proper mood
How do
hoovers.
you not let that spiral out of control for yourself?
Or they're pretending to be bored or trying to be disinterested. They're probably not.
Tricking you.
Yeah, look, I always say look for a smile.
Yeah. I'll be there.
Yeah, you have a Lisa. Look for the Lisa in the audience. She'll be smiling away at you. Look for a smile, even if it's out of pity, as we always have a little joke about.
Yeah.
And then you attach to those smiles, converse with those people. It will soon start to spread.
Yeah.
You go to the left, you go to the right, the back of the room, the front of the room, around the meeting. Look for that positive energy. You'll get the nodding heads that will come from that acknowledgement of the agreement of your point. And just focus your energy where you want the energy to go.
Not to reinforce the negative energy in the room.
Because what happens is we get so consumed in the grumpy, negative Nigel on the front row, that we get so consumed in that and we think our job is to get everybody on my side.
But we're always so critical, aren't we? We forget all of the 20 positive feedback we had and we focus in on the one more negative one.
Yeah.
But you can't please all of the people all of the time.
You can't. Well, we always try to.
Yeah.
Right. Stop, look, mentally rehearse, see it as the way it's going to go. See a positive outcome. A little thing you can do actually is if you close your eyes, you can actually visualize yourself, not just visualize through your own eyes, but actually visualize, go and sit in the audience and then look back at you.
Gosh, that's terrifying.
Yeah. Look back at yourself.
Yeah.
And then visualize what you would look like from the audience perspective.
Yeah.
And then think about, how would you change up the performance? Do you want the person to move a bit more? Do you want them to express themselves a bit more emotion, or use more hand gestures, more eye contact? So this is a very sort of third person.
Yeah.
It's a very, very powerful technique. And then from the audience perspective, you come back and sit in your own skin and then perform it. It's almost like you're the director directing you.
Yeah, because sometimes, I'm sure there's some people listening that find it really hard to visualize things. But when you are actually just saying that, by taking yourself off to different perspectives, does start to build a picture slightly more easily.
And the final thing in our highway code, stop, look, listen.
Yeah.
Listen is about listening to what your inner dialogue is saying. I'm always asking audiences this question. What is the thing? What is the thought before the thought? What is the thought you're having before you go and present? What is the thing you're saying inside your head? And so much of the time, it is this internal dialogue that just says, let's just get this over and done with, which is about the worst possible thing. Or, I just hope I don't screw up. I hope I don't mess up. Or you're hearing your boss say to you, don't mess up. This is your big opportunity. If that's the mantra you've got in your head, this is a great way to feel anxious.
It's not going to help you at all.
This is really good. If you combine that with the rubbing of the hands, looking down, visualizing all going wrong. This is a good way. This is the way you do anxious.
I heard a really great thing from Simon Sinek when he said, someone asked him, does he feel nervous when he goes to do a presentation? And he said, sure, I get the butterfly type feelings, but I prefer to label them differently. So he says, I get excited. So he feels the same physiological response, but he labels it something differently. And actually, when you do that, excitement sends a very different signal to your brain than nervous.
I once heard a lovely phrase that said that all professionals get butterflies, they just get them to fly in formation. And that's what we're talking about here.
That's lovely, yeah.
Butterflies are normal.
Yeah.
It shows you care.
Yeah.
It shows you respectful to yourself. You're respectful to the audience. Listen, folks, it's just normal. Yeah. Of course, it's normal to get a few butterflies. It shows that you are.
It's important.
It's important, exactly. Yeah. So listen to your inner dialogue. What are you telling yourself? How about changing it to something like, they're going to love this. Yeah. I'm really excited about this. They're going to love this. They're going to love me. I know it might sound like, oh, come on, Martin, that's going a bit too far. But why not?
I am going to learn so much by doing this.
They're going to benefit from this.
Yeah. This will open up other opportunities.
This is a great opportunity. I'm looking forward to the conversation. I'm looking forward to understanding them more. Have a mantra. I'm really excited for this. I'm really excited for them understanding more about whatever it is you're going to deliver. But have a positive message, because as you know, if you're using negative dialogue, and, if I say, the classic whole thing, don't think of the colour blue. Yeah. What do you think about blue? So if you're saying to yourself, I hope I don't screw up, I hope I don't mess up, what are you going to be thinking about? Whereas you say, I'm looking forward to this going well, I'm looking forward to the excitement, I'm looking forward to the conversation, that's the picture you're going to get. Yeah. Your language impacts your neurology. Yeah. So you've got one voice that you're speaking your presentation with, and then we've got self 2, the critical voice, critical part of ourselves, criticizing ourselves whilst you're delivering it. Oh, that wasn't very good. Oh, look, I missed that story. Oh dear, I should have said this. Oh, I missed that, got that factoid wrong. No one gives a damn, and nobody knows.
Tell that little person to
exactly, yeah. Thank you very much. But
we'll have a chat afterwards.
Yeah. Let's have a chat about this afterwards. Right now, you can just quieten. I guess
with all of those things, then stop, look, listen. It's the key message is to focus on what you do want, whether you're visualizing or self-talk, rather than what you don't want. And so assuming people have delivered a presentation, what about in terms of getting feedback afterwards? What if somebody has some negative feedback, for example, around a presentation that they have delivered?
So you've delivered your presentation. It's always useful to get some feedback. What worked well? What could be better next time? What might you change? Particularly if we're doing a presentation at the moment on branding for a client. Yeah. There's 3 of us delivering. First thing we do is immediately after that we're going to deliver like 9-10 of these. First thing we do is you ask the audience. Yeah. How was that? What worked? What resonated with you? What could be better? We utilise that. We make tweaks. We don't see it as a negative. We see it as a positive. I'm grateful if somebody says I could do with more or better examples on X.
This helps you refine things, doesn't it?
So be brave. Ask for feedback. Have the courage to ask for it. Have the humility to listen to it and the discipline to go and change.
And quite often you're harder on yourself. So if you get feedback, there might be things that you didn't realise the audience particularly enjoyed. It might not have felt that way to you, but they might mention something, you know. So rather than dismiss something, you know, use that information to refine your approach and refine
And this
your
is
message.
the process of constantly improving yourself, both as a presenter, storyteller, and communicator. And, you know, asking for feedback. How did my talk, how did I do in the meeting this morning?
Yeah.
That's the way you're going to get better. So you, rather than fearing feedback, fearing public speaking, fearing rejection, just embrace it. It's just normal part of growing and learning. Just asking for people. Well, actually, if you just go around asking for people, how did I do? That in itself, I can guarantee, will build your confidence.
Yeah. And particularly if you then journal it and you can see over time how you've developed from the first time you did it to now, soon enough, you know, those nerves will be dialed down massively.
So I think we've delivered on what we said we were going to do.
Yeah, I think it's been, I mean, I've learned loads that I'm going to go and off and apply. And I think it's been highly practical. And as always, you know, we will distill all of these ideas down into a very simple power tool that you can go and download in the show
Just
notes.
to briefly summarise then, we use this sort of framework of context, content, and confidence. Context is all about understanding the audience, the 8 steps that we talk about in the first couple there, audience analysis, understanding the objectives. Then you start to look at content, you start to look at your key messages. Then you find out the, you know, facts and data to support those messages. You structure the message together. And then what we have to do is we have to start thinking about, how do we rehearse? How do we rehearse? How do we refine? Read it out loud. Get a friendly audience to help you with it.
So then the final piece then was around the building confidence, which comes from rehearsing, and then the presenter's highway code that we just explored, stop, look, listen.
When you apply those 8 steps under the framework of setting the context, designing the content, and then having confidence, it definitely will improve.
Yeah.
That's a big wish for you here, that you take some of these ideas and you go and apply them immediately. As we started at the top of this podcast saying that your ability to communicate well, to present well in public is such a game changer.
Yeah.
And we wish you well in that endeavour. And with that in mind, do share this with other people. If you found this to be useful and you know people who are struggling with presenting, share these ideas with them. You'll be doing them a big favour.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, Martin, brings us to the end of our 3rd series.
3rd season. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So we will be back after a very short break with lots of other exciting episodes. We just wanted to say thank you very much to all the listeners for your support and the comments that we receive on all of the episodes so far. So thank you.
It really helps us improve it and give the audience, give our listeners what they really want. Thank you very much.
Until next time.
See you soon.